Welcome, everyone. I hope you were able to listen to the keynoter this morning. That was unbelievable and gets everybody inspired. Hope you're having a great conference. This is the kickoff of Friday morning, and hope everybody's looking forward to a great weekend and, of course, the great game of Michigan State. No one's saying anything about Western Michigan versus Central Michigan on Wednesday, but there's not the same hype, I guess. But for us CMU grads, it's always been a great rivalry. But anyway, I digress. So we're great. I hope you're in the right session. The session today is community education and what it means to the community. And we're fortunate enough today to have Brian Puffer and Andrea Frank here to present to you. We're excited to have them, and on behalf of McKay, I'd like to thank you both for volunteering to present and give your expertise as far as what community ed means to you and your communities, and how that blends in with your school district. So we're very excited to hear your presentation today. Don't forget, at the end of this presentation, you can go to your agenda and pull down the individual session, and make sure that you rate this session so that McKay, as members and as board members, we can get a great idea as to what people are looking for, how those sessions were received, and so we can always look to improve our conference year after year after year. So without further ado, Andrea and Brian, take it away. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bob. Thanks for having us. Before we get started, I just want to say where people got in here. I am one of two people covering our office this morning here in Saline. So for some reason, if I had to get up and leave, Andrea or Bob could take over. I don't see that happening, but the way this last year and a half has been going, it may happen. So just as an FYI. So we'll get started. If people that have attended this kind of session before, when we were in person, if you've been to a conference, it sometimes takes its own direction, and that's fine. We want more participation, the better. Patrick came to us a couple weeks ago, asked us about doing a presentation at the conference, and obviously we're busy like everybody else, but Andrea and I met a couple times, and this is kind of just what we came up with, what we think community is important. So hopefully you'll enjoy it. If you have questions, please ask. So let's get started. We'll do some introductions. My name is Brian Puffer. As you can see it there, I'm the Community Education Director for Saline Area Schools. I've been with community education since 2004. I've been the director since 2008. So I've been here a long time, and it's went by pretty quick. But we have 8 different departments. We are in charge of our before and after care. We're in charge of facilities for our district. We are for our preschool, our auditorium, our high school pool, driver's education, and I think it's a before and after care. So that's a little bit about me. Andrea, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Frank. I am the coordinator at West Bloomfield School District. Like Brian, we are a small staff, but we have many branches. So I started about 3 years ago, and the 2 gals that were in the department are now retired. So they were really shining the spotlight on me to see if I could bring in some new ideas and freshen up some programming. We also have adult ed and the preschool and before and after care.
All right, go to the next slide. We get a chance in here. These are some words we've been throwing around, and very important in the last couple of years, obviously with COVID, and 2 of them that we've been really focused on is innovation and just impact. We've had to be innovative the last couple of years, and the impact we've had in our community, getting kids into the school buildings before school started and with COVID and whatnot. So these are just some words we went through and looked through, and they kept coming up. So as we're going through today, there's just some words we like to focus on, and you'll see these things come up as we kind of go through our presentation. All right, next slide. And I will say this is my first ever virtual presentation, so it might be a little rough. And so Andrea, if you need to jump in, please do. Again, this is our agenda, what we're going over, kind of our lessons, what we learned, more so from COVID, what's working now. We did a survey that we sent out earlier in the year for community education departments, kind of go over program guides, what people are doing, how you're communicating. We'd like to share the word about LEO. It's a new registration system that we've started here in Saline, and I know a lot of other districts in Michigan have just started with them as well. And so we're going to go through that, and then just kind of go around and just kind of talk about challenges everybody's having. We get a lot out of this conference by listening to, hearing what other districts are doing, what's going on in other districts, how are you coping with this, what you're doing with that. Granted, it's harder to do this when we're all virtual and you can't see each other, and we're going to talk over each other, but that's fine. But we just really want to get some feedback and kind of just share what we're doing. So like I said, it's going to be a roundtable discussion. You're going to look at me, look to my left a lot. It's just because I'm reading my notes on my slides here. But like if a topic comes up and you want to speak about, please let us know. All right, we'll go to the next session, or next slide. All right, we can do this, lessons learned. And what I'm gonna do is kind of go through here what I have in, I have about 8 different points, and Andrea, I'll let you kind of jump in. I'm just gonna go through each one. And then if anybody has questions in chat, please let us know. The first thing that we really learned, and a lot of us is focused on COVID, is that we had to learn that no is not an option. We had to find other ways to run programs. We are very fortunate in Saline that our administration, our former superintendent was, let's get kids back in the building as soon as possible. Not all districts were like that. It was nerve-wracking, and we were the first, when the pandemic hit in March, we were the first group back in the buildings, and we were back in the buildings in late May. And we started summer camp as soon as the governor allowed us to in June. And so we had to find ways to run summer camp. We had 10 kids to a room and 1 teacher, and they did not cross paths with other kids. And it was very military style. And we had to tell our parents they were coming to summer camp, it's going to be more like almost like a boot camp than a summer camp. It's not going to be as fun as it has been before, but we're going to do our best with it. And so we had to learn that no is not an option. How are we going to run programs? And if you can see in the lower left-hand corner there, last year we had our daddy-daughter dance under the lights, and I was on our football field, and we never thought about doing that. And the dads just loved it. They spent more time taking pictures of themselves on the field than they did with their daughters, it seemed like. And so it's a program we didn't think about ever doing outside. Now, granted, last year we had beautiful weather. This year we had horrible weather, and we had 320 people, and we had to move it inside, and they had to wear masks inside. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but we have never would have thought of doing something like that before. I don't know, Andrew, if you guys have any programs that you ran maybe differently that you didn't do before that you could think of, or anybody else in the chat, if you had something you wanted to share.
Yeah, so you can tell on the top right, we were back in after the bells, and we started doing a program called Cloud Care, and we tapped into all of our after the bell and kids club staff that would help and assist with kids after a half day session. So if the kids were in school just a half day, then they could sign up for Cloud Care. So they had their laptops, it was more instructional, and then I would go in and do some sort of craft. So we were on a tight budget because we didn't plan for that. So all materials and things were really kind of grassroots. I was opening bins and trying to figure out, what could I make with the supplies that I had and not buy anything. So something that I did when I was younger was, chickpeas and peas and toothpicks. So we got creative and just, I would go in and run a craft.
Andrea, what was that called? Cloud Care?
Cloud Care.
Cloud Care. That's great.
Yeah. Because, we were all online in the clouds. So, and then down there on the slide, you can tell that we had Young Rembrandt's program, which is very popular through community education. I know in Oakland County. So we were doing things online for the kids as well. It was a great turnout. But again, we just had to adjust and adapt, and no one knew how well it would go. And like Brian said, we really had to just keep going and just figure it out. one of the things that I did I would always call Brian. Say, what are you doing? How is this working? And we would just bounce ideas off each other. How was it, how did this go? What were your lessons learned? So just tapping into your resources and not reinventing the wheel, because we were, but someone else had done it before. So we would just use each other as resources and share ideas.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's really great what you said, is just using each other's resources, and don't be afraid to reach out to another district. And if you've been in this field for any amount of time, you steal stuff from other people. If it works there, you take it. We started a summer school program. We basically copied what Bob did, but Bob gave us his notes. So this is what we did in Novi, so that's what we're doing. And so, but just for a couple other things with lessons learned, like we had a new program, Hornet Homeroom was born. And basically we knew for the first 3 weeks of school in 2020, we were going to be virtual. So we started this program we were told to start this program called Hornet Homeroom, and we did it through community education. But basically we could come to the school and access their virtual classroom here at the school. We put it together in about 3 weeks. It wasn't smooth the first day, but we learned that we can work with all other departments. We ran this program. Obviously, our IT was involved. Kids would come to the school, but we had food service, before and after care, substitute teachers, bus drivers, and lunch clerks, all working together to help these kids each day. And the pictures that we had, with pictures that you would never think. We had a kid, I think one of the best stories we had, this kid was an at-risk kid. He did not do great at school. He would only work at Hornet Homeroom if this one lady was there, and she was a bus driver. And it was phenomenal. They had this connection, and so there's a lot of bad things with COVID, but there's a lot of great things that we got out of it. And that was one of those things. And now we've reached out to our daddy-daughter dance. We reached out to bus drivers. We reached out to custodians that weren't working to see if they wanted to work the dance. You'd be surprised how many people wanted to be involved. They were just to ask them. So they're not just, looked at as a bus driver, come here and work. And yeah, we're paying them, but it's just to get them out of the light, that everybody's not in their own silos. You can use people from other departments. Will they say yes? I don't know, but just to ask them, it goes a long way. And when you do that and you work with people from other departments, it just makes your district stronger as well. Because you know them, you work with them, you see them differently. It's not just, hey, that's the guy that comes and picks up our mail out of the room each day and leaves. I don't know him, but I think I do. So I think lesson learned there is that you can work with other people in your district.
That's awesome. Brian, again, what was that homework program that you
did?
did?
It was called Hornet Homeroom, and basically, like
Hornet.
I said, Hornet Homeroom, and that's what we called it. It was we saw somebody in Ann Arbor doing it. We stole the idea. I was like, all right, we're going to do that here for Saline. And so the good thing about it is that we did it for the first 3 weeks, and so we had about 200 kids registered. So we had 4 elementary schools. So we had kids there, and it was staffed, again, like I said, by those people. And then when we went back to an async schedule, we had synchronous Fridays. We were virtual every Friday throughout the whole school year last year. And so we had Hornet Homeroom every Friday all year long. And we ended up getting like a $15,000 grant from our foundation to the schools. And so it's a program that I hope we never, ever have to run again, because I hope we don't get in that position. But it was cool, and we got a lot out of it. So it really made our department stronger, and we were able to work with other departments. So it was a great opportunity.
So can I interrupt just for a minute?
Yeah.
Because you're really answering a question that I had that I wanted to ask both of you. And as well as I do, you've been in the business long enough that community ed sometimes is perceived as basket weaving. Mm-hmm. And we've had that bad rap. It's not even perceived as childcare or adult education or alternative education. It's perceived as oh yeah, you offer these basket weaving classes and things like that. And so my question to you right now is, and I have a couple others, but how do you see community ed? And you've already answered it with the Cloud Care and Hornet Homeroom, but how do you perceive, or how do you see community education connecting with K-12, with your school district? How do you see that as a connector?
I'll jump in really quick. I think, like I said, a lot of bad things came from COVID, but one of the positive things is our school board recognized what community ed can do, because we are now offering, this past summer, we offered more K-12 enrichment programming that directly affected our students than we ever have before. And we had super summer scholars, we called it, that where we looked for all the kids that they weren't at-risk kids necessarily. We worked with teachers to see what kids were struggling in school that maybe sometimes typically don't struggle, and so we reached out to these parents first and asked them if they want to be part of this program. We ended up getting a grant for it and whatnot. And so we worked that in. So we had, at times, we had 200 kids in the school this past summer. We had 65 kids at this program, and our summer camp we had over here. It got a little chaotic, but we sold that to the school board. And so we showed them what we could do. And that was one of the things we learned is, when you're doing something, tell everybody about it. But more importantly, tell your school board about it. Because you know what? People are going to tell your school board when you're doing something bad. So tell them when you're doing something good. And so, that was one thing that we learned. And it's kind of, we've been around a long time, but it kind of gave us, I think pump our chest out. But we did a lot of things last summer, and we did the summer before. But I think it's going to stay that way. We're going to be even more involved with, enrichment and whatnot, and we're directly affecting the students. And so we are just kind of, we're focusing more on that. And so, Andrea, I don't know if you have anything else to it. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that one.
I feel like this really took community ed from being on the sidelines to we were definitely in the game. We worked really close with our teachers that taught after the bell classes. So some of our PE teachers that would like to coach after school, I would ask her, what do the kids want? And now our numbers, I'm finally on a waiting list. This 3 years, I'm finally at a place where our programs are selling out, and now we're on a waiting list. So, and I can share that with our central admin and say, this is what we're doing. But I've completely got away from offering anything to the actual community. I've stuck with our families that we have and our kids. That's my main focus right now. And I'm working strongly with robotics and math pentathlon and really growing those programs that already existed instead of trying to do, a one-day yoga or, crafting and knitting, like you said, Bob.
Right.
So I'm really just pulling back the layers and just working with our kids, K-12. I did want to mention one thing that Brian was talking about, where we can't say no. So in our summer camp, when COVID first started, we were doing camp in a box instead of camp in a bag. So I worked with our adult ed lead and director, Dawn, and she helped me create some curriculum, science things, history on Michigan. And what we did, we put together these different groups of like packages and kits, almost like you would get from the local library, a craft kit, but it was really school. It was based on the curriculum. And then the box we used was a pizza box from a local pizzeria. They put in, a couple free coupons for pizzas. We went to Dairy Queen. We got some free tokens for ice cream. So it was things to do with your family while you're learning and then going out and enjoying this strange time. So that was an example I wanted to share, just kind of piggybacking on Brian's, concept of we just can't say no. Okay, what are we going to do now?
Right. Kind of just wrap up on this slide, though. The last couple of things I had were one thing was patience and understanding, and making sure that your district's helping you out with self-care and whatnot. You have those options. If you don't, reach out to your superintendent or reach out to your school board. And the one last thing I really learned, and I've kind of mentioned this already, is just show appreciation. You might not always get it, but show it. We had our daddy-daughter dance, and we moved inside. We moved 374 people inside 2 hours before, and our custodial crew was phenomenal. If it's like anybody else's custodial crew, they're down like 7 people right now. And so the next day, I just sent an email to our buildings and grounds director and told them they did a phenomenal job. And people don't get a lot of good news nowadays, and so that went a long way. And so it does go a long way. And so the more you can it's hard to show appreciation when you're getting beat down every day, but if you can show appreciation to people, I'd recommend doing it, because you might not think it'll be a big deal to a certain person, but it goes a long way, especially now. That's all I have on this slide. Do you have anything else, Andrea, or anybody else for this? No. The next one, what's kind of working right now, I'm just kind of give you an idea for us, what's going good, I guess to say, you know, for lack of a better word. One is if your district can do rentals, if they're not allowing you to do rentals, if you're in charge of facilities, I would encourage you to try to let your district do it. I know there's some around us that do not. We've been doing rentals since July of 2020, and we are turning people away because we have so many people coming in. It's a hassle, it is, but you know, I'm not gonna lie, the money's good. And so right now our rentals are really picking up, especially since the seasons are changing. Our sports camps and leagues have just been booming since we came back. Those are our summer camp. We typically would take 100 kids per day. This year we put it at 75 because we were still cohorting. Those kids still could not get the vaccine. And so we could have had 100 a day. And while the money would have been nice, we couldn't. But people were ready to get out and do stuff. At least I know they were here in Saline. Our summer camp numbers were busy. What's working for us too, we'll go over a little later, is Elio, which is a registration software that's been phenomenal, just helping us with our registrations and our communication. And what's working now is that we've learned to communicate more. My staff in general, we have meetings we have a facility meeting that we never used to have, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. You know, so it's almost over communicating with everybody, but with the craziness of everybody's jobs and how things change in a dime, and you got to move this person here and move this person there. You have to over communicate right now, and it's working for us right now. Andrea, do you have anything else kind of?
So what's really working for us, and the same with anything sports related and outside, we have a school that has a soccer skills after the bell, and parents are bringing their lawn chairs and their thermoses, and they're just hanging out with other parents. And this is something that I would see at a different type of league, but the parents also want to see other parents and the kids want to play. So it's just really comforting that, you know, it's starting to all come back, but it's a lot of the outdoor and the sports are really popular. That's really what's working for us. And also grouping communications with things that are sports related and then academic together, because I think there's a lot of overlap, and just with like times of days and after school, you know, if you're only available a certain time and day, then people kind of glance over it, oh, we're not available. So I'm just kind of chunking that information out in our e-blast and making sure I can get as much as possible, communicating with the secretaries, making sure that they're on board with helping spread the word. And they know the kids best. So I always try to tap into them and just say, you know, even if you know one or two kids, just please let me know. I've been meeting with a lot of parents too, which is nice, and getting to know their strong suits and what they can bring to the table. So if it's something creative or even, you know, active like yoga or something, when the parents can get involved, you know, they're on these group texts, and it just starts to, you know, snowball in a really good direction. So communication is key.
Brian and Andrea, any type of programming for adults, or is that kind of gone away? You're shaking your head. So it must be, it's really not as popular.
Ours has actually been it's been the most popular we've ever had. Is right now it's for our program for adults, which has been crazy, but it's the virtual, like we have a virtual piano class and for adults, and they're taking it and they're eating it up, which I don't know if I could do a piano class virtually. But in another one, our senior center I didn't mention is under community education, but they have a lot of virtual classes that are staying, because the seniors, you know, some of them still are not comfortable coming out. And so they're running very well. And a lot of them are the exercise classes. You know, yes, you can go on YouTube and you can watch, you know, you can look at videos, but when you can interact with a person face to face from your own living room, you don't have to get out, especially for the winter months coming up. And so I would encourage people to look at, you know, people that want to teach virtual and do it, because you can interact with them and it can be a cheaper rate. You know, you have all these things now like Peloton and all of those, they're not cheap. But if you can do virtual classes, especially for the older population, even the younger population too, especially when we get into the colder months, I think it's something that it's going to stick around that, you know, probably before nobody really thought about doing. So, and even our in-person classes, and people probably do this, we have this lady who's been doing this class with us for 10 years, selling stuff, how to sell stuff on eBay, you know? And so, and I was like, and when we usually have 1-2 people and she'll run it and she likes to do it. We had 15 people a couple weeks ago do this class. It was in person. So I think people are just wanting to get out and do things. So I don't know if this will sustain our adult classes, but if you get 15 people for an adult class, for us, that's like a record.
That's great number.
Yeah. So they have been good for us, but I don't know if they'll stay that way, but they have been so far.
Good.
In West Bloomfield, we have a very robust Parks and Rec, and I've been working with them. And again, we're just trying to, I'm trying to stay in our lane, and, you know, I want to focus on the kids, and they can, you know, they can target the seniors, and what they do is very well. And so we've talked about, you know, Parks and Rec does not have a pool, and we do. So how can we work together? And, you know, our mascot is a laker. So we have like 30 some lakes in West Bloomfield. So we've kind of been tossing around the idea of, you know, everyone should know how to swim in West Bloomfield. This should be a service that we can offer for free. So just, you know, sticking to what we're strong with, and I'm just sticking with the kids. And I have one adult class that's a retirement class that's face-to-face. But again, I didn't even do a print brochure this year. So I'm a show of one, and I'm just doing the best that I can and sticking to our mission, which is the kids. So
yeah, well, that's great though, Andrea, because that's what community ed is all about, right? You identify problems it's not problems in the community, but things that can benefit the community at large, and you assess where the best resources are, and you bring those resources together to do that. So I mean, that's awesome. That's really good. That's good.
And I also think too is that I gotta tell my staff too, kind of, we need to refocus on how is this benefiting the student, because sometimes we think about we have nothing to do with the students till after school. No, I mean, like what we do, how does it benefit the student? And we had a lot of praise because we got the kids back in the school buildings before, you know, the fall of 2020. So they got them back used to being in the building and doing these things. Was it scary? Yeah, it was. I mean, every day you're like, what am I going to get a call for? Who's quarantined now and whatnot? But you had to push through it. And so it's just what we do, how it affects the kids. And it kind of made my staff and me too, but I made them realize what you're doing is important, and it does affect the students. You know, it might not be directly, but it does affect them. And then one thing that Andrea said, I want to touch on about reaching out and communicating. We work with our Parks and Rec department. If you have one, I would say in your district, don't look at it as that's my competitor. Look at it, how can we work with them? Now, I worked at Parks and Rec before I came here, and so at that department, and I know the boss very well. But we run a flag football league with them, and we just got our check for $4,000, but we get half of it. But all I do is provide the field. She does all the work with working with them directly and handles all that stuff. And so, you know, we do about 4 or 5 programs with them that we work with. And so I would encourage you, if you have one, you know, they might be stealing your programs, or, you know, but if you can open that line of communication with the director, you'll see it'll benefit both of you if you can work together.
yeah, collaboration is key with Parks and Rec. We own the data. We have the contact information, and that's what they don't have. I mean, they have the mailing addresses and things like that, but we have the circles of groups of kids that like certain things, and to tap into that it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, and this is the last thing I'll say about it is it's kind of crazy. We have a pool here at the high school. It's a competitive pool, so we don't take our summer camp there. We take our summer camp to the Parks and Rec department who has a pool. And so we take our kids over there. So there's 2 summer camps going on at the same time, the Parks and Rec and Community Ed, and we're both there at the same time. We're using their pool. And so it's just, you got to be able to work together and whatnot. But like, again, I look at a Parks and Rec department as something you could take advantage of, not as something that it's my competitor.
So Brian and Andrew, I just wanted to emphasize what Brian said earlier, because I think it's so critical for all of us that work in school districts and work under that umbrella of community ed. It's so critical for us to figure out ways that we can show the district that we connect with and improve the lives of our students in that district. And in the programs that we bring help strengthen student achievement. And Brian and I have had long talks about that. And it's so critical because the superintendent is the person that is responsible for showing student growth, student achievement. That's their focus. And so we need to figure out ways that we can connect with the district through the programs that we offer, and how does that help improve student achievement, which we all know it does, by giving students a broader base and an enriched life, and helps and families as well. I mean, it helps all around. So thank you, Brian, for sharing that, because that is so important, I think. And that's the one way that I see us being able to kind of recharge and revitalize community ed as a whole, is what are we doing in a district to support student achievement. So thank you.
Definitely. Thanks, Bob. All right. Well, I think we'll move on to the next slide. Oops. Can you, Andrea, click on that results? Can you see if it pops up for you? If it doesn't, we might just come back to this one. Awesome, it does. All right. If you go down to the bottom, it should be, the responses. Click on at the tab, I'm sorry, the tab at the lower bottom there. It says chart response. Yeah, perfect. All right, quickly, I just want to go through this, and basically all I want to do with this is just share this out with everybody here. I'm not necessarily looking for feedback from it, but I want some new eyes to see the data that we collected. And basically what the process was, before I came onto the Community Education Committee, I know Bob was in charge of it for a long time, and they're in process of doing a survey, and we are working with Novi. And so we sent this out in January, and we had Patrick send it out to McKay. We had some superintendents send it out. And so as you can see up there, we had 20 districts that participated in this survey. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of scroll down. You can read it yourself, but I'm just going to go over it. And if you see something or questions about something, let me know. If not, that's fine. You guys all have access to this, so you'll be able to go back and look at this a little later. But as you can see, kind of going up to the top there, and again, we sent this out. People brought the information in. The first question was, are you a McKay member? And 95% of people were. The next one, though, is, do you offer enrichment classes? Because community education departments in general are not the same across the board at all. How we run in community ed here, I only compare it to a couple other departments in the state, how we're set up, and it's how it is. Some, just do adult ed. And, some people think it's crazy that Sling Community Ed doesn't do alternative ed. And even though they're on the other side of my wall in my office, we are not part of alternative ed. We don't have adult education. So we're a large community ed department that does not do anything with adult ed or alternative ed, which is kind of mind blowing if you think about it. So when we go through it, we're set up more like a Parks and Rec department, if you think about it. And we have a very large Parks and Rec department about 2 miles down the road. So it's kind of crazy, but it works. So going down, you can see 80% people offer classes. And if you can scroll down, you can see what we did here is how many overall participants in your enrichment programs from 18 through 19. We wanted to get numbers pre-COVID. And so obviously the average is going to be a little, not correct, because you have Troy up there at 10,000. That kind of breaks out. So I probably took them in Birmingham as well. And so these numbers aren't exact, but as you can see, the people that did participate, we do have a lot of people taking, recreation enrichment programs. And again, this was pre-COVID. So kind of keep scrolling down there. And if we had how many enrolled in your youth enrichment classes, you can go down and see. And obviously, once again, Troy and Birmingham have a much larger number. Not a lot, but if you go down and see, you can see how many people we have in classes. Adult education, this one's, more interesting. Like I said, we have 0. Then you have Birmingham, you have Troy, have quite a bit. Dearborn, Illinois Intermediate. They have a lot of classes, and there's some smaller ones. And so adult enrichment, it's important in the districts that don't have it. I would make sure that you have a resource to send people somewhere. We do not offer it, but we get calls all the time. We send them down to Milan if we can. The Milan's right next door to us, or anywhere else that has it close. So I'd say keep in mind, if you don't offer something, it might not benefit you, but do your best to, send them somewhere that does have the information or it does have the classes. The more we can support other community ed departments that aren't yours, the better. And so just keep that in mind, I think, from that. This one, youth enrichment programs immediately after school. I know this is a topic that comes up when we meet in person, that some districts have enrichment classes right after school. We do, because that's where we get the kids who are already there. I know some districts don't do it because they don't want the instructor not showing up and then going down to the office and having the office call the community department and said, I have 20 kids here and there's no teacher. And so for us, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we had a new program we call Swarm of Voices. It's our choir teacher teaching choir program. He's not doing it at the elementary schools. So this kid's had a half an hour to get from the elementary schools over to the middle school. We typically don't do that. We were not providing transportation, and it really came to nobody's, and I didn't catch this. We have 50 kids in there. So like, well, hopefully the parents know to pick these kids up and take them over there. It worked out well. They figured it out. But how it's set up and how it's supported if you do after school program is huge. Do you have somewhere for those kids to go if your instructor doesn't show up? Luckily, we have before and after care. We send our kids there if we don't have somebody show up. It doesn't happen that often, but if you've done after school programs, it does. So, and so you can see 55% offer them, 45% don't, but I think that's kind of the reason some people don't offer it after school. Aquatics, obviously very few. We do offer aquatics because our pool at the high school is funded through community ed because we have a rec millage, which we're very lucky to have. Before and after care program, I would say, like I say, 45% have it. If you don't have this program, or if it's in your school district, if you somehow can start a before and after care program, it's a lot of legwork. But I tell you, when this thing is running right and before COVID, this program would make us between $300,000 and $400,000 a year. There's some they'll bring the YMCA in and whatnot, but if you can run your program or something small, I've helped a couple districts start one up. Yes, it's not something you just say, I'm going to do it and you start it next month. But if you can get a program, it can be very beneficial financially wise. But besides facilities, it makes the most money for our department by far. And so we did not make money on it last year, obviously, but we were async a lot of days. But this year we're kind of getting back to the norm. And then you can see here our preschool programs, 45% have one, 50 don't. How we're funded. This one is all over the board. You can go down there and see there how kind of go through. And so I know sometimes people ask how community departments are funded. I'm not going to go read all of them, but I thought this part of the survey was some of the most interesting information to see where people are funded by. I was shocked to see general fund on some of those. I didn't know that was a thing still, that community departments got money from the general fund. For our instance, we pay about pre-COVID, last 2 years we haven't paid, but pre-COVID, we would pay each year between $300,000 to $400,000 into the general fund, which obviously is a lot, but we are in charge of a lot too. We're in charge of all the buildings once school closes. We charge money for that. So, but going through that, I would encourage you to, keep this survey, if for nothing else, just this information right here, because sometimes you want to know, hey, this is good information for your board. Why not? This is what other districts are doing. This is how they're funded. So, like, again, just keep that in mind. I think it's important to have that. So what else do we have? And again, if there's any questions, things stop me. I'm just kind of going through. Does your community have a Parks and Rec department offers classes? We talked about that. 55% said yes. Again, this is another way where you can go back. If you have that Parks and Rec department and you do not currently work with them, you look at them as they're evil. When not, I would encourage you to reach out to them. If you already work with them, great. It can only help you with your programs. And then the other one here is, how did the COVID affect your programs? Obviously affected everybody in a negative way, but that's also just some information you can read over. Now, mind you, this survey was done in January. These responses might be a lot different, but if you can go through and kind of look at what people have said, see where they're from, what school district they're at, kind of get a feel how they're doing. I mean, different communities, different districts were hit harder than others, but there's a lot of good information in there that lets you know, all of it. Dearborn, I know they've been a community, you say, yes, it is most destroyed it all. There's a lot that are hurting, some of them come back. And so, look at that information and, reach out to other departments too, if you have questions, or see how they're doing. It's an important time. Like I said, Andrea's talked about just collaborating, communicating what other people are doing, how they're doing it. And if you have a program that might work somewhere else, by all means, share it with them. And then there's additional comments on there, what people want to share. Again, I'm not going to read all that, but I think it's good information for you to go through when you have some time and look at it. I know I just rambled on a lot about that survey, so I don't know, Andrea or Bob, if you guys got anything, or anybody else in the chat, questions, thoughts, feedback on that?
I know one
I'm just
thing.
glad to see 20 districts has participated in it.
Yeah, that was good.
Disappointed I didn't see Novi in there, but I'm going to check
Well,
on that one. So
yeah, they made this. They put the survey together, so there you go.
yeah, I know they did.
So
No, that's good.
What we're doing over in Oakland County is, well, at one point we were meeting face to face, and then when I was new, I said, who's using who for custodial, who's using what program for rentals, and then when we had a question, it was a Google Doc. So when we had a question about something, I could look at that list and that chart and say, okay, Jill over in Birmingham is using DM Berg for custodial. Let me call her and figure out how they do this. So, and I think that our central admin really likes that when we find out what others are doing first, it just gives it more, it's tested, tried and true when you can say, this worked here and this is how they did it. Okay, let's do that. It's just easier to get the ball rolling and get things approved faster.
right. I think you're muted, Bob. Bob, I think you're muted.
I always forget that mute.
That's all right.
So Nancy, do you want to explain the question that you're trying to ask here?
I just thought, is there a thought to maybe redo the survey now post-COVID and add a question about any districts that might be looking at adding a community ed, or possibly, I know Romulus is looking at it, and I don't know if there are other people, but it might be a good indication of what's to come. Did people survive COVID? Are they viable? Are they moving forward? And where do we go from here?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, we're 9 months from the survey that we put out, and so obviously everybody's in a much different spot. So we can definitely do that. I think that's a great idea. Cool. Any other thoughts on the survey? I know we got 15 minutes here to go through. All right, well, let's go. Next one, we talked about communication already, and this one is, if you just want to put in the chat, kind of give everybody an idea. Program guides, I know it's a big thing, and I'm just going to give a brief overview of what we're doing here in Saline, and by no means what we do is the way you should do it. But I'm just going to tell you how we're doing it. We made the decision of printing our first guide since COVID. It was our summer guide. Everything else we were doing virtual, and I made the decision after talking to my staff and other people in different districts that we were going to bite the bullet and do it. We want to have a hard copy in people's hands to remind them that we're still here and not just rely on social media. And so we printed our summer guide. It was our first guide since our 1920 winter spring guide, I think it was. And so it was probably 8 pages shorter than our usual guide. But what we did is that you can use LEO, which we'll get to in a little bit. You can send out surveys through LEO. It's amazing how you can do it, the responses. And so we asked people, how did you hear about summer programming this past summer? And number one was our program guide, our hard program guide. And so it gave us the sense, okay, we did the right thing by printing it, because obviously, you know, for us and mailing it and printing it, you're looking at $3,500 to do it. And so, but getting the feedback that people, the main reason they heard about it, our programs, they said the program guide, the hard physical copy. Because if you've been in this business for a long time, people are always like, I'm going to save $10,000 and not print a guide anymore. And you hear all these data. As soon as you do that, you're going to lose, your business is going to drop 70%. I always joked and said, if I knew I was getting fired, the last thing I was going to do is not print the guide and see how well we did with our classes. But you know, we did it for a couple of times actually during COVID. So we printed a fall one. We're getting ready to print a winter spring one as well. So like I said, if you're listening, and if you just can put, you know, in the chat what your department's doing, that's kind of what we did. And we still have a digital one that you can access as well. So Andrea, I don't know if you want to kind of chime in on what you guys are doing.
Sure. So like I said earlier, we, you know, are small, mighty staff of one for the brochure portion. So I decided to not do a print brochure, and our numbers are doing great as far as after the bell. So I'm still doing the grassroots backpack mail. That seems to work with our kids and our parents, and then also just electronic communications for those programs too. So I decided not to do it. I just figured it would be pretty bleak, and I just went against the current on this one. So I know all the studies show, you know, keep doing your print brochure, but I decided that I'd rather have, I just took a chance.
Yeah. And like I said, it's each department's your own, and what you're doing, it's gonna work for some, not for others. And so, I mean, there is a cost to it. And I know some people don't even do traditional brochures. I think I just saw one come down there from Tina that says they don't. And so depending on what you're doing, how many programs you're doing, obviously that's a big thing.
Nancy put in the chat that they didn't do a brochure either for the fall, and their numbers showed in their adult offerings, but their social media reached out to younger families and they thrive.
Good. Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tina put in that we didn't do a traditional brochure either. Advertised through social media, lots of moms, garage sales, emails, printed flyers for those who requested.
That's good. And that's the thing too, is I think social media with COVID, obviously social media is even more important, getting the word out to parents. And I think you had some parents getting on social media that in the past would not have gone there for information. But when you're telling people during COVID and we're not in the office, you know, we were telling people to check our Facebook page, not check our website, you know, right. Go there. And I was telling our staff to do that too, one, on purpose, because I go, hopefully we someday will get past this COVID thing. We'll be back in the office, but people will remember, you know what, I'm going to go to Facebook because that's what I'm going to look at first, and so, and whatnot. And so kind of going on for this video that we'll show in just a second here is communications is a huge thing. And, you know, this is kind of, I didn't put these in the correct order, but think about how you communicate with your community, your students, your parents. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't have people to do Twitter. I don't have people to do Facebook and stuff like that. And I totally understand that. There is good things out there. We're using Buffer now. It's like my last name, but B as in boy, BUFFER. And it's phenomenal. We use it for our district. You can post to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, right with Snapchat. It's like Hootsuite, but much better. And so it's called Buffer. And I'd recommend using it. Our communications director turned us on to it. And I know an Idaho communications director, we just got one actually. But that stuff like that, think about that as you look at this. Now this slide right here, what we're going to show here in a couple of seconds, I did a conference on social media. I think it was Crystal Mount, I can't remember what it was, I think 2019. So if you went to this, you've seen this before, but sometimes when you have, the reason I'm showing this, if you have still a board or superintendent or something like that thinks that you're wasting time by using social media and Facebook, and I think that's the minority now. We've used these videos to show people before, and I've sent this out. So just give us a quick watch. It's a short video. It's interesting. It's 2 years old now, so the data might not be as relevant, but go ahead and take a look. I don't know if you can get sound. If you don't have sound, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Andrew, you can stop if you want. I think it's just with the YouTube. Right? Oh, what's going on right now? Yes, Stacy, we can definitely do that. So kind of just what I want to hit on that is a couple, oops, sorry. Quickly, what I want to hit on that video is a couple things. You got to know what people are saying about you. One of the things that I sign up for something that's really simple is Google Alerts, and it'll tell you what you want to put in there. So I have Saline Community Education, and so anytime there's an article out there that says Saline Community Ed, it might not always refer to us, but it'll pop up and I'll get an email. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, Saline's was in the news a lot for the wrong reasons, so it popped up a lot. But that's something simple you can sign up for, and you just kind of hear about what people are saying about you, good or bad. You want to know, but you need to know what's going on with your apartment, what people are saying. If you want to gauge interest in something, we have our craft show coming up. We posted on Facebook our COVID protocols and just sat back and watched. There were some unhappy people. There's other people with a lot of support, and so it's just kind of how you use that. Your social media goes a long way. So that the video we'll send out, I'll put a link in the chat here in a second, actually, to that video before we sign off. But it's just something that's always going to be here. But like I said, I think everybody used social media more and more during COVID. So I want to keep going on that. A lot of people use it, but is there anybody, if you want to post in there, go ahead, Bob.
Sorry, Brian.
No, you're good.
Andrea, there was a question Nancy asked that, are your schools allowing backpack flyers again? And are your schools or schools are not, our schools are not and have lost that communication avenue. So she wonders if you are allowed that.
That's too bad. Yeah, we're in charge of it. So we actually have to approve any flyers that go out through the district community ed. So we are still doing it. We don't do it as much. We just actually, it's funny you say that because we have flyers sitting out there and I go, I haven't seen a hard copy flyer in a long time, because we didn't do it last year because we had A kids coming on Monday, Wednesday, B kids coming on, Tuesday, Thursday. And so we flyered a couple times, and it's still, our daddy-daughter dance, we did flyer that, and people, we did survey them, and they said that how they heard of it was a flyer backpack. Now I know we're killing it. I know we're killing trees, and it's a horrible thing for the community, environment.
Yeah.
We don't do it as much as we used to, but yeah, we still do it.
Yeah. Well, that's good that your department.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrea. Go ahead.
We still do the backpack flyers religiously. When I first started 3 years ago, I was, going like this. Why? So I interviewed with Peach Jar and I heard their pitch and I thought, oh, we're going to go online and it's going to be great. And then, the cost that's associated with that is just not, we just couldn't do it. So we are still strong in the backpack flyer game, and anything that is communicated in that way has to be run through community ed. Sometimes a couple things slip through the cracks, like Girl Scouts, or they'll just work directly with the school secretary, but it's usually harmless. But I don't see that going away for us. I do try to, front and back as much as possible, black and white, on maybe a colored sheet of paper. So I do try to be conscious of that.
Do you, either one of you or both of you, do you have any tips for smaller rural programs?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you can get, I know social media is the way to go, I think, with that. And depending on what software you have, I know we only got a couple of minutes left and we're not going to go through, like, I'm going to plug Elio really quick. We have that software allows us to text every single person that signs up for a class if they sign up for it. And it's phenomenal. And people like getting information. People are on their phones all the time. And that video shows you, I mean, people operate off their phones. And so we text people a lot, like, for new classes coming up and stuff like that. They can opt out of it. And some people aren't happy with it, but I think you just lean on, your social media that you have. If you can flyer schools, do it. Maybe they'll let you do it a couple times a year. I mean, we flyer stuff sometimes and we'll put not 15, but like 6 to 7 programs on one sheet of paper. So you have this and that, not necessarily putting all the information, but if I give you a paper, it has 7 programs on it and it has our website, our phone number, and you want more information, you can go online and look at it. So if they do let you flyer, or if it's very few, take advantage of what you can use and put like 7 or 8 programs on one flyer. We do that quite a bit.
For rural areas, I would, try to piggyback on what's already happening in that area. Say if there's another community event or something like that. So you're making more of like an afternoon or a day of it. That would be my suggestion. Offering some sort of in-person incentives, sign up for this raffle, have to be present to win type thing, to get people out. That usually, and then you can chirp that up through social. Oh, they did this before, they're going to give away this. Sometimes you have to just invest the money to get the people there.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Bob.
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just gonna say, I know we're up against the year of the time. I just want to, I did put the link in there for that social media video. And so that is in there. Elio, I won't go over, I'll just go over it quickly. It's a software company that, my opinion, we've only been with them for a year and a half. And they're phenomenal. I know Bedford went on before we did, and I know Dexter joined before we did, and I saw what they were doing, and I was like, so we jumped in. We just had our first user group meeting with them last week, and I know Nancy was there, Andrea was there, and so you can look at our website later and whatnot, but I will tell you, I've been in this field going on 22, 23 years, and by far and away, after a year and a half, this is the best registration facility software I've ever used. It's phenomenal. They're based out of Minnesota. If you know, every school district in Minnesota has a community education department, and so right now they have 17 school districts in Michigan, and they're growing quickly. I know around us, I know Pinckney went to them as well. So Pinckney, Saline, West Bloomfield, Bedford, and whatnot. So if you get a chance, if you're looking, their pricing's competitive. You can haggle with them, but please look through. You can look through our websites and those links there. And I know we're almost done. So Andrea, I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
And they are a sponsor as well, and they're doing an update in their next session. If you're interested, Ilio is doing an update.
Oh, perfect.
At 11 o'clock. So, yep.
Yes, it's very user friendly. It's always a risk when you move, platforms, and it takes a lot of time in the beginning to set everything up, but it really has paid off well. True testimonial. It is really amazing. Like I said, I've never experienced having a wait list, and I have with this program, and it's just so user friendly. The calls have decreased of, you can't pay online, and silver lining with COVID is we moved completely to an online registration only. So no cash, no checks, no money orders. We're not in that game anymore. So I had to switch over. And so I thought this is the best time with the new software, and it's great.
Great. Well, again, Andrea and Brian, thank you so much for bringing this presentation to us. It's invigorated me again for community ed and all the things. You guys are doing an awesome job. And I encourage all of you to go to both Celine and West Bloomfield's website and check out all the programs that they do. So thanks again for participating, and don't forget to rate the presentation today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Happy Halloween.
Go blue.
Go Blue.